Welcome to the Strong Women's Club, episode number 89.
This is the Strong Women's Club, where successful women share their behind-the-scenes stories of how they got to where they are today. Join us.
Hi, everybody. This is Edie Berg. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, we're continuing to talk about the Strong Jewish Women Summit, or just the Summit, as I call it here. So in case you get confused, I call it the Summit, I call it the Conference. Episode 87 was all about why I'm working so hard at bringing you an incredible event all around women's leadership and why Jewish women's leadership. Then episode 88 was about how I'm doing this huge project. It's about a 4-month project, 4 months of solid work. So it really is a big project, more than I thought. It's more fun also. So many fantastic benefits and outcomes for everybody, for me and for you, and really all together that I can see already. But I'm going to hold that off talking about the benefits of the summit, and I'll do that in a wrap-up podcast episode after the conference is over. So today's episode is called Who Summit, right? So I had Why Summit, How Summit, and now Who Summit. Is the summit for you? Are you even going to find it interesting? Well, my plan, of course, is for most people to find it interesting. Doesn't matter who you are, regardless. So obviously it's for women and women who are into leadership and Jewish women. By the name, you can probably guess that, what I've talked to you about in the last few episodes. And bringing Jewish women together under a non-political roof and community that is also non-judgmental, but that's very, very general. And so here are some specifics. If any of these sound like you, or if you can relate to them, then this conference, this online summit is definitely for you. If you know that women can be, and once they're given the opportunity or take the opportunity, they are effective leaders, then of course this summit is for you. And if you're already one of these women, if you know that you have a leader inside of you, but you feel like you could really use a few tips, then this is going to be perfect for you. And if you love to hear biographies and stories from real people about how they build their careers, and if it's an extra added bonus that these stories come from people who are really a lot like you and have similar backgrounds and history and holidays and values as you have, who speak the same jargon as you, who understand you. If you say balagan or safta or mashigana, then and you don't have to explain yourself afterwards or be careful about how you say things, then you are definitely going to love this summit. Now, if you'd like to get some concrete information and have it at your fingertips so that you'll have an intelligent answer ready when somebody flippantly might say to you, there are already plenty of female leaders, or women have exactly the same opportunities as men have, or why does it even matter? A good leader is a good leader, regardless if they're male or female. Or they might say to you, either you're born a leader or you aren't born a leader. It isn't something that you can learn. And if you're tired of hearing those things and not having a good answer ready in your arsenal, then this conference is for you. You're going to hear those answers. You're going to hear them explained. We're going to talk about them quite a bit, why it's important, and how you can arm yourself with the right knowledge to be prepared to be a leader yourself and to talk about women's leadership in an intelligent and confident way. Now, also, if you are tired of the great divide, of the very big gaps between different and various Jewish sections, then this is also for you. Now, personally, I'm very, very saddened by politics, mainly because it just tears people apart. Good people, there's so many women who I don't get to meet because we're so divided. Of course, I have my own opinions, believe me. And I know that you do too, because, somebody tells that joke about the reason for not having sex in Israel outside in the public places because you don't want to get everybody else's opinions, and you kind of feel like that's a little bit of a compliment even, and that you have opinion about that as well, then that's you. We're talking about us, right? Those are people with opinions. But politics can rot you from the inside out. And I know that women are the answer to world peace, and not in that they're taking care of people, and not only that, but also because they're more understanding leaders. And we as Jewish women, I feel, have the responsibility, in my opinion, to hold our communities together, to learn from each other, and to get closer to each other. And my vehicle for bringing that to fruition is Jewish women's leadership. Now, as well as all that, if you are also an entrepreneur, if you're starting a business, we have a few people on the summit that tell their particular stories, and they're teaching how to take an idea or how they took their idea from the point where it's just an idea to an actual product. So it's about taking an idea all the way to a product and the steps and the hurdles along the way. Okay, so if I've already started along these lines, then let's get into the specific about who is speaking on the conference. And some of these people you will already know and others you won't. And when you build this type of conference and you plan it, you're really supposed to get some famous people, some celebs. And the reason why you should get celebs is because they already have a very big following who will follow them all the way over to your business. So in this case, to the summit. And you'll instantly get their audience, their instant numbers. And numbers are important for sponsors, but numbers aren't really important to me if they have no substance. So somebody else's followers will not become my followers. And what I mean by that is that they won't necessarily be interested in what we're all working towards here. It won't be as important to them. They'll only be really interested in that particular celeb. So I haven't gone after very, very big celebrities. However, we do have some very big names on the summit who are well known as Jewish women leaders. And I'm sure you're going to learn a lot from them and just enjoy listening to them as well. So let's get going about who they are. There are quite a few speakers at this point, about 25. It's a lot more than you'll ever get to hear or see in an in-person conference. And they're from all over the world, which is another amazing bonus that the internet has been able to give us. It's made the world a lot more accessible, much cheaper, much smaller, and it's so exciting. And I love the tech behind this all, by the way. So I'm very proud and happy to be able to bring this kind of high-quality content to you for free so easily. Easily, I'm saying after almost 5 months of full-time work, but easily in that it's easy for you to access. So here we are in no particular order. The women who I have for you at the moment on the summit. Let's start with Lori Palatnik from JWRP, the Jewish Women's Renaissance Project. So speaking of celebs, Lori is definitely a celeb in the work and world that she works in and I work in. I love Lori, and she's one of the founders and the chairperson of the JWRP, and she's bringing thousands of Jewish women to Israel from the U.S. and now Australia and Eastern Europe for their first ever trip to Israel. And can you imagine? That's so exciting. It's such a gift to give to people. And it's actually a free trip. They only have to pay for their flights. They're doing some fantastic work. And I've had a little bit of contact with them. I love what they are doing. Lori has an incredible personal story too, which you can hear here on the podcast on episode number 49. We talk about starting a movement, how to start a movement on the summit, which is exactly what I'm doing now. I'm starting a movement, and we talk about raising awareness for your cause and about the nitty-gritty of how to raise funds, how to ask for support and who to ask support from, why it's worthwhile doing. And we definitely talk about the importance of making that gap smaller between all different factions of Jewish women and having us as one beautiful, strong sisterhood of Jewish women who really love each other. I mean, it sounds a bit cliche, but that's what it is. Now, I'm going to have to speed through some of these people, or all of the people, because we're going to be here all day. So you're going to have to go over to the website to really have a look. You can see everybody's picture there and what their titles are and what we're talking about on the summit, but I'm still going to try to get through them. So I speak to Professor Mina Teicher, who is the Vice President of the International Women's Forum. And Professor Teicher, she's such an impressive person. She was the former chief scientist of Israel, and she is now an international professor at NYU School of Engineering. She does a lot for international women's leadership. We talk a lot about that and the work that they're doing and how they're mentoring women to be, parliamentarians, how for them to go from being the vice president or vice chairman to the chairman of large corporations and how they do that. I talked to Devorah Mason. Devorah, she's a fun person here in Jerusalem, and she is now the manager of the Innovation Lab at the Tower of David Museum. So if you've ever been to Jerusalem, to the Old City, you've seen that Tower of David Museum right at the Yafo Gate. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous place, historic venue. And we talk about mixing the old and the new and how you bring innovation to some place that has never had innovation before, and how you kind of teach your audience to learn in a way that you want them to learn. We have Dr. Judith Rosenbaum. She is the executive director of the Jewish Women's Archive, which is an incredible internet resource. I use it all the time on the podcast when I do research, especially for the Strong Jewish Women in History sections that I do. I do those usually once a week. I talk about a strong Jewish woman in history, even if it's recent history. And I lovingly say it's my dead woman's podcast, my dead Jewish women's podcast. But what I mean is a woman in history that is very impressive. And I love to be able to research. And I use her resource, that the Jewish Women's Archive, as a resource for getting me going on those podcasts and on the research. And we talk, and she specializes, Judith specializes in women's history and feminist history. We talk a lot about how it all came to be recently with the Women's March. The next person here on my list is Dr. Yael Schuster. So she has a funny bio, and she talks about how she's a scientist and activist and entrepreneur and a mother and a unicyclist and a whole bunch of other things, fun things that she does. She's actually a chemist, but she has started a fantastic business called Stellar Nova. And we talk about what goes into starting a new company and her ideals and the why behind her business, why she thinks girls must be involved in STEM and how to advance women in STEM. And the conversation will get you thinking about how to get your kids interested in STEM and science and technology and engineering and mathematics. I talked to Dr. Rahel Berkowitz. She is also known as Rav Rachel. She's a rabbi here in Israel, and she teaches specifically about halakha, of women's participation in Jewish ritual. Very interesting and in-depth conversation with her. And we talk a little bit also about the Passover Seder and how the rabbis, when developing the holidays, how they obligate men and women equally, and how we know that, and what tells us that they found that even in the time when the halakha was written, in the rabbinical thought about what mitzvot, what obligations do women have, and are they the same as the obligations that men have? I talked to two people at one time on one interview, and they're the founders of the JFE, which is Jews for Entrepreneurship, and it's a network of Jewish and Israeli founders worldwide. It's based in San Francisco and in New York City, and they're opening up a sister company here in Israel, and they have worked with over 120 startups. I get to talk to both of them. Their names are Jenny Belos. I always mess her name up, and it's embarrassing, but her name is Jenny Belotzerkovsky and Michal Trovrovsky. And you know what? I messed up her name on the summit, and I did it here now as well. And I apologize again to Jenny, but it's just a name. I talk really, really quickly, and I will start practicing her name. Jenny Belotzerkovsky. There you go. And Michal Trovrovsky, fantastic duo. We talk about being a duo, having a partner, and working with them together, and what are the ups and downs and the hardships and the benefits of having a partner in business. I speak with Carol Schwartz from Australia, which is really fun. It makes the conference even more global than it is. I mean, it has a wider reach than in the world. Carol Schwartz is the founder of the Women's Leadership Institute Australia. She's the founding chair there, and they're concentrating on making sure that there are equal number of women in media and speakers in conferences as there are in men. Speaking of gender equality and women's leadership in governance and social enterprises and businesses and finance issues. Fun to speak to Carol. It's a whole different perspective. From Australia, you do get a bit of a different perspective. It's not the same as in the United States or England or Israel, that's for sure. And it was very interesting speaking to Carol, and I really, really appreciated her coming on and taking the time to be on the summit, as I did, of course, with all the women who donated their time to be on the summit. Miriam Lautner is on the summit also. So she is kind of well known here in the Anglo-Israeli community in that she's just a powerhouse and she can do everything and anything. And she is the creator and founder of Reveal Cards, which it's a card game for kids, like for young teenagers. She has Reveal Cards in Hebrew and Reveal Cards Israel in English, and she has Reveal Cards about space and about Florida, and she's just starting. And it's an actual product that you can see in stores. It's just the perfect size and just the perfect amount of cards in there, and they're beautifully made. And she did all of the photography herself and the idea. And she really, this is just a side project. She has a full-time job and she has twins, and she seems to be able to do everything and be in all places. She's a mentor and a business consultant, and she's a very big advocate for women in technology. So it's fun to have her on the program here as well on the summit. I'm speeding through these. So Rivka Malka Perlman, she's the kind of person who kind of mixes spiritual side of things with business side of things. And you'll love and learn when you hear Rivka Malka speaking to us. And she had a near-death experience, and it changed her life. And she tells us all about that experience. And you'll be able to take away from her story into your own, how to be sure you're working on things that are important to you, and not just working on the fluff. And once you find out what's important to you, which can take some time, but once you find that out, then you're very lucky and you can really be more fulfilled. So this is an aside from me in that knowing yourself and knowing what you really believe in can take a long, long time. It took me a long time, especially. But now, once I have found it, everything seems to be so clear, and I don't procrastinate anymore. But this is really kind of an off aside. But anyway, so Rivka Malka Perlman, she has her own site, and she does fantastic work in conferences and speaking engagements. So you'll have to look her up, but make sure you don't miss her talk on the summit. And then something totally different. I speak to Subi Zimmerman. Sue Zimmerman is an Instagram expert, but she's not just an Instagram expert, which she is, though. She's a social media expert. We talk about why it's very important to have social media at all for your business, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. And even if you feel a little bit overexposed, what kinds of things you should be sharing, and how you should really put the spotlight on yourself. You don't have to share private things, but you do need to share about yourself, because a business really is all about the person who is behind the business. It's not just what they do, it's who is doing it. So social media is extremely important to any business. Sue Zimmerman's expertise, as I said, is Instagram, but she has had a number of successful businesses. We hear about that, and we hear a lot more about using social media wisely for your brand. I also speak to Ruchi Koval. She has a blog, website. It's more than a blog really now. It's called Out of the Ortho Box. And she talks about how Jewish Orthodox education can be a little bit too old-fashioned for a lot of people who are Jewish Orthodox, especially Jewish Orthodox women. So she talks about taking it to a little bit new age. And she and her husband are co-founders of a Jewish Family Experience. It's a congregation in Cleveland, Ohio. And she wrote a book called Conversations with God, Prayers for Jewish Women. And she writes a lot on her blog, Out of the Ortho Box. And I talked to her about why she felt that was important for her, how other people can also relate to that sentiment of orthodoxy really not fitting into today's world, and how she was able to change it but still stay very orthodox. Very interesting conversation with her as well. Next, I speak to Dr. Dara Horn. She is totally different from everybody else. She's an author. She's a powerhouse in the way she speaks. She speaks really, really fast, and she thinks super fast, and she speaks super fast. And you get kind of an inside look as how her mind works, and what her thought processes are when she's writing, and how she comes up with her storylines. And her stories are a mix of biblical characters and science fiction and women's religious rights and all kinds of unexpected, clever angles. And she has her PhD from Harvard in comparative literature. I'm also speaking too fast. And she studied Hebrew and Yiddish, and she's now a visiting professor in Jewish studies at Harvard of Hebrew and Yiddish literature. So she is definitely the expert in this field. And her books are well worth taking a look at, and fun and very, very interesting to read. Next, we speak to Zoe Bermant. She also lives here. She's an Anglo living here in Israel. And she has kind of a no-nonsense approach. And she's a serial entrepreneur. And she has a lot of talent. She talks about using pure talent and chutzpah and gumption and hustling to develop products and apps, which she has done. She's developed both a product and an app. And She has managed social media for huge corporations, and she creates solutions that solve technical pains for parents. And she also does some free mentorship for you if you want, and she can help you figure out the developmental path, the strategy for your own business idea or your product or your startup. And she does that. She kind of pays it forward to the community of women entrepreneurs. So if you're interested in that at all, she can really, really give you a hand. She's sometimes a little bit of a party pooper. You'll hear her talk about it because she's very, very upfront. She's very honest. She's very clear in the way she thinks and what she says. And it's a real gift to be able to get some mentorship from Zoe Berman. So if you're at all interested in that, please listen to the summit and you'll hear how you can get that from her. Alison Josephs is also on the summit. So Alison Josephs has a very big website, a blog service, and videos, and she does some mentoring, and it's called Jew in the City. What her original mission was, and she tells all about her personal story. Very, very interesting. She's a great speaker, and she tells about how she came to be working very hard at breaking stereotypes in Jewish orthodoxy and why it's important to her and how she's doing it. And as I said, she's a great speaker, so it's an entertaining conversation. You'll just want to hear more and more of how she speaks and what she's talking about. And it was a very tragic incident that was the catalyst for her starting this way of thinking when she was a young person. So please listen and hear what she has to teach, and then go over to her website. It's called Jew in the City, and she really is a great storyteller. So listen in and learn to Alison Josephs. Next, we have Luann Nigara. I love Luann. She's a personal friend of mine, and you will see that I actually snuck one in. I wrote it here on the website. It's very clear. She is not Jewish. I know, but it's okay. It's really, really okay. And in fact, not only that, when I was putting together the summit, I was wondering, can I have men? Why shouldn't I have men on the summit? And I really think that I could have men on the summit, but I did make a decision not to, just for this first one. It's not that I don't think they have a lot of valuable things to teach and that we can learn from some men for sure. But I decided the first one, it will be a little more powerful if I just have women. And that's what I decided to do. On the other hand, I did include Luann Nigara, who is not a man, but she's not Jewish. And the reason why I did that is because I know her very well. She's a very, very smart cookie. She has a wealth of experience that we really can learn from. And she has, again, a very direct approach that I appreciate. She teaches about excellence in your business and how your mission statement in your business really dominates and directs everything that you do from that point on. And she knows because she has a business for 30 years, a very successful one with her husband and a cousin, who the three of them are partners. And she's in charge of sales. Now, sales for any business is really the key, right? There are a lot of keys, but I think sales is probably the key. So, because you can build a fantastic business, but if there are no sales, then obviously there's no business. So I talked to her all about that and how you can choose to be excellent at your business. So please listen to Luann Nigara, and you can also check out, they have a business in New Jersey about window treatments and awnings. And she also has her own podcast. Luann has a podcast. It's called A Well-Designed Business. It's all about the business aspect of designers' businesses, right? So she's not a designer. She's a business person. So she knows all about that. I don't think there's anybody who knows more about it than Luann does. So it was important for me to have her on because, she's like an ace. And if I know her and she's a friend of mine, so why not? Why I can just ask her and she'll come on. So you guys are all lucky to get to hear her as well. Gloria Felt is on the show. She's on the summit. I'm used to saying the show for the podcast, but she's also on the summit. And Gloria Felt, if you don't know her, then you should. She was a past president for many, many years of Planned Parenthood. And now she's the co-founder and president of Take the Lead, which is a leadership school for women. And she talks to us. She teaches us some real leadership lessons on our summit. And Gloria, I attended one of her classes, a whole day workshop. It was also a virtual workshop. It's well worthwhile. She has a special bonus that she's offering to people who sign up on the summit for the All Access Pass. So have a look at the website and see if that interests you. And if it does, then jump right on it because it's a great deal. People magazine called her the voice of experience. She won a bunch of prizes, and she has a lot of practical information on the talk about being a world leader in women's leadership. So don't miss out on her talk. The next person is Dr. Judy Malinik, and she is very different to everybody else because she's an expert in forensic medicine, and she's the only Jewish expert in forensic medicine who really is an expert about Jewish autopsies. So it's a little bit strange in that, we're not talking about here about leadership in a way, but we are talking about she's the only one doing what she does. And we talk about Jewish laws when it pertains to autopsy, and if there's a question about the cause of death and what would you actually do? And I found it very interesting, and I think you will as well. It's not something we get to talk about very often, so she's on the summit as well, and you get to hear her. The next person is Yael Elad. She is the CFO and the COO of a wonderful venture capital fund here in Israel called Aleph, and she is an expert. She speaks very often about moving yourself forwards in your career, especially in a male-dominated environment, and how you can make more money and how you can get your promotion, and with some great negotiating tips she gives us here on the summit. So listen to her. This is more practical advice and lessons about negotiation and, as I said, moving your career forwards in a male-dominated environment. What you can do. Next person is Elaine Hall. Elaine is an incredible person. She is also kind of new age. She's part of the Chabad community, but she's kind of a spiritual person in many different ways. But she's also very practical, and she tells a touching story of how she adopted a son who was he is autistic. I wanted to say severely autistic, but I don't think that's the right term to use. But she developed a treatment method for autism, and she also provides many, many opportunities, positive opportunities for children with autism, including they're out in Hollywood, and so they have plays and productions that they put on. And she built a B'nai Mitzvah program for in religious education for individuals with autism. And she is the creator of the Miracle Project, which was an inclusive Jewish-themed theater and film program. And she was even profiled on the HBO documentary Autism the Musical. So we talk all about her story and how she came about the treatment method, how it works, what she's doing with it. I know that recently she was at the UN with it and with some of the people who participate in the Miracle Project. She's been on CNN and CBS and Oprah's network and featured multiple publications. So please listen to Elaine Hall and you'll be amazed by her story and her son's story. Heidi Zak is also on the summit. Heidi Zak is the founder of Third Love, which is an online e-commerce platform for buying bras. I kind of got that mixed up, buying bras, but it's buying bras and underwear, and they're moving into bathing suits soon. So she talks about how she chose which business to get into, and she has an MBA, and she got it from a very good school, and then she went on to work at Google and all kinds of very impressive places, and why she chose to leave them and to get into the work that she's doing now and starting her own business. And we talk about that, and she was kind enough to jump onto the call twice because we had some very bad Skype problems while we were recording it. So she was very nice about that. And in fact, I should also say to you about the Skype. Skype was not our friend during the conference, but because I started with Skype, I continued with it. I didn't want to change platforms midway because then the movies would look different to each other. So sometimes it was great, and other times it was really the opposite of great. And you'll see. So I really apologize. I would expect for a summit every minute to be the highest quality, and I can't say that that's the case in some of the video. Right, the content, I can say that is the case. The content is really excellent. And I know that you will get a lot of value of it, but I do blame Skype for some of the tech difficulties, and next time I'm going to be using a different platform. The next person on the summit. I only have 2 more now, but there will be more. It's just there. I don't have them recorded yet, so I don't want to talk about them yet. I just make sure that they actually, I don't want to jinx it. So Beth Steinberg is on the show. She developed a place called Camp Shutaf. It's here in Israel, in Jerusalem area. And Camp Shutaf is for people with disabilities and their peers who do not have disabilities. And it's kind of their day camps that she runs during school vacations. And she also developed after-school programs. And she just was answering a need that she had, and she found a void here in Israel. And she and a friend who also has a son who with disabilities developed this incredible program. So again, we talk about developing something that you need. How do you do it? Where do you start? Who do you go to? What are your, some of the difficulties? How do you get over those difficulties? When do you quit? Do you quit? If you don't quit, then where do you take the strength to keep going? So many questions and answers that I think we all have, especially as entrepreneurs, definitely as leaders, and anybody who's even struggling as an entrepreneur, somebody who's in charge of a section or a division inside a larger company. You have exactly the same questions and difficulties as an entrepreneur who's just working with one person by themselves, a solo entrepreneur. So we talk about that a lot with Beth Steinberg. And the last person I'm going to mention, even though, as I said, she's not the last person on the summit, her name is Ruth Messenger. Ruth Messenger was also on the podcast not too long ago. She was the CEO for many years of American Jewish World Service, this is an incredible organization who just goes all over the world, evaluates and locates vulnerable populations, sees what they need, asks them, what do you need? How can we help you? They don't come in and just decide for them, this is how we're going to help you. They ask them, how can we help you? And then they give them the tools, the skills. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's skills, sometimes it's resources, different types of resources for them to be able to take care of themselves. Right? So this is like, the story about the fisherman and learning how to fish. So do you want to, give them a fish, or do you want to teach them how to fish? So I just botched that fable up. The worst that's probably ever been botched before, but it doesn't matter. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we talk about what the American Jewish World Service does, the Jewish values and principles behind that project. That's not a project, it's an organization that's been growing exponentially for 30 years. And what she's working on now, and how Ruth was able to grow their resources from a very minimal budget to having more than $270 million grants to vulnerable people all over the world. They were able to provide. So she was extremely successful in her work, and she continues to be extremely successful in her work. We are lucky again to have her as a mentor on our summit. I'm going to wrap up today's program. I hope you found that interesting. I'm excited to get this going. You can go over to the website now and just go ahead and sign up. I'm super excited. As you know, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the summit before it airs, before it's released. I moved it to be after Pesach, after Passover. I think I already told you, but I'm going to tell you again. It's going to be starting on the 23rd of April. I think that's just better for all of us, right? Because Pesach, there's a lot of work before it, and then we just want to be with our families during the holidays. And all the kids here are on vacation, and I know there's a lot of vacation all around the world. Also during this time, and I just want people to have free time to be able to enjoy the summit and not just be rushed and trying to get it and not having the time to really enjoy it. So that's it for today. Thank you again for so much. Thank you again for joining me today. If you have any questions, please contact me. You can contact me straight from the summit webpage if you want. There's a contact area there. There are two addresses now you can get me. You can get me at edie@thestrongwomen'sclub.com or edie@thestrongJewishWomenSummit.com. And the address for the summit is www.thestrongjewishwomensummit.com. So after women's, there's an S, and there's another S at the beginning of summit. So there's 2 S's in a row. thestrongJewishWomenSummit.com. I know that it's long, but it's very clear as to what is going on here. So that's why I chose that name. If you have any ideas or comments or suggestions for people to have on the next summit, or anything else that you'd like to tell me, please write to me there, or just maybe it's even easier, just contact me at the Strong Women's Club Facebook page, which is where you can find me right now if you want. Pleasure talking to you. Have a great week, everybody. And Chag Sameach, happy Passover if I don't get to talk to you before then, although I think there will be one more episode before then. So take care. Have a very, very strong week and Litrot.